Hello and welcome. Thank you all so much for joining us for Middleway Cafe's virtual artist talk. We are so excited to share with you the artist currently on exhibit, Hailey Morgan. Her show, which is currently up for the next 2 months, is called Shun. We will be highlighting the works from Hailey's show on this Facebook event discussion feed and Middleway's new Facebook and Instagram art pages. So please come back throughout the next 2 months to see images of what we have currently on exhibit, and be sure to follow these updates on Facebook and Instagram at Middleway Art. Middleway is currently open for dine-in, takeout, and delivery through Grubhub. If you are going to Middleway Cafe, we do encourage calling ahead to see if their services have changed. We also encourage you practice social distancing, good hand hygiene, and wearing masks in the cafe. Even if you are not able to go into the cafe, you will still be able to view this exhibit online. We'll be posting a virtual walkthrough of the show. We have also made Hailey's work purchasable through Mobile Bytes, which is an app where you can view the gallery and purchase Hailey's artwork directly. My name is Aileen Page. I am joined by Jade Aldridge, and we are the art co-curators and art directors at Middleway Cafe. We also have, of course, Hailey Morgan herself here with us, and the outgoing art director and curator, Enzina. Before we begin, I'd like to pass it off to Enzina, who would like to share some updates and do a land acknowledgement.
Thank you so much, Aileen. I just want to take a moment for us to acknowledge that we are meeting virtually today on the traditional lands of the Dena-ina Elnena Peoples. We honor these lands and peoples and express our gratitude for their past and present stewardship of this land, for which we are all guests upon. So I wanted to thank Aileen for that great introduction, and the update I am going to share is that I've been honored to be the director and curator of Middleway Cafe for almost 13 years. And I'm even more honored to transition that leadership to Aileen and Jade, who are going to be such strong leaders and advocates for the arts and arts community, and will take Middleway in fantastic new directions. So I'm so excited to be able to transition this to some really, really strong leaders in our community.
Great, thank you, Enzina. And Hailey, thank you so much for joining us today and for sharing your work at Middleway. We'd love to hear more. You've chosen such a unique title, Shun. I thought we could start with that.
Sure, yeah, thank you guys so much for having me. I love Middleway. It's such an amazing environment. And, you know, kudos to you guys. And Enzina, thank you so much for your hard work all these years. You've really helped to build Middleway as like a great place to show and showcase artwork. I feel like when I had a show at Middleway, I want to say a couple years ago, I feel like it really helped get my artwork out into the community. So that's something that I'm so grateful for, and I'm so grateful to be showing my artwork at Middleway again. So I kind of, the title of the show is Shun. So it's T-I-O-N. And I find myself saying show shun quite often, which makes me giggle. But that's not where the idea came from. So the work is encompassing the last couple of years, and the majority of the work is the last year, and this last year 2020 has been absolutely crazy. It is an up and down space with so many things happening, and so many emotions and feelings, and it didn't feel, I struggle always to find the words for an art show. I like to articulate with visual representation. So for me, finding the words for either titles or the title of a show altogether is a bit of a struggle. And so I was trying to think of all these words that I could associate with the art show that I put up at Middleway. And they all came back to this idea of shun. So I looked it up because, you know, I'm falling into the trope of some, I don't know, writing of some kind, of making a definition out of something. But the show encompasses this creation, this education, this isolation, the relation that we have, communication, articulation. It's all these things that are happening, and it's creating action out of nouns. And I think that for me, the last year and the last couple of years, I have just been working on so many different places and having to adjust and going through transitions. I just became a mom. I have a 3.5-month-old. He's amazing. But it's just figuring out all of these different things to balance in my life, and including art, that I tried to find something that would encompass all of these different things happening in my life. And I think that shun kind of encompasses all of it, to answer your question.
Yeah, sounds like, I mean, there definitely has been a lot going on, and congratulations to you as becoming a mother. Yeah, it's been really crazy, especially as artists who, I guess we kind of get impacted by a lot of our surroundings and what's going on. So now, in your artist statement, that you explained that you look to the outdoors for grounding, and we can see a connection directly to Alaska in your works with the depiction of animals and mountains. I'm wondering if you could tell us a bit more about your process, like what mediums you use and what inspires your work.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I guess starting with the inspiration, it's Alaska is a beautiful space. And I moved up here, oh, wow, I think it was 6 years ago, with my husband, who's from Anchorage. And I visited up here for the last 12 years. And Alaska's always had a draw for me, and it's now my home. It's where I live and work and play and have a family, an extended family. And getting outside is the most rewarding part about living in Alaska. It's just this epic beauty and all these interesting animals. And I think that to live here, you really have to connect to it in some way or another, because there are challenges that people don't have in other places, of just the cold winter, or you know, it is far away from family, and I think that, or friends in the lower 48. And I think that to want to be here, there has to be a draw. There has to be something that's incredibly inspiring, and Alaska's outdoors brings that to you. And I think that being outside and enjoying being in the woods or the water or wherever it is just, it's calming, and it's finding that calming space to kind of ground yourself. And so, of course, art is another way that I relax, and it's almost a meditative process for me. So when I go outside and do these things, I can come back and just sit down and also relax and make the artwork. And so I predominantly work with watercolor and ink, and I've been playing with Copic markers. So you'll see a lot of work that's done with Copic markers, which is just like, oh, they're so vibrant and they're so much fun. And I love working with them. And then I've actually put together a little demonstration video that we can post on the Facebook page a little bit later that walks through the whole process of it. But it's always also covered with lots of detail work on top. And I think that for me, that's a part of the aesthetic, but it's also just part of the process and how I enjoy just getting into the motions of creating line work and working on patterns and creating textures, and bringing it all together. Did that answer your question? I can't remember.
Yeah, yeah, it's great. We'll definitely love to share that video. And in your pieces, you can clearly see this kind of connection, I guess, and the fun aspect of all your pieces, because they all look so fun, and they're diverse. I mean, you have mountains, you have animals, you have monster friends. Do you have any sort of favorite subject or like go-to?
Well, mountains. I mean, mountains they're beautiful, and you can also be so creative with them as well, and in terms of how you translate them and form them on the paper. Monsters are also just like, they make me so happy. It's like when I finish a piece and I have this like finished little monster, it makes me smile, it makes me giggle, and that's something that's really, really rewarding. Something that's a bit of a theme in this show is that a lot of the pieces are smaller than what I normally make. And part of that was this sense of accomplishment when you finish a piece of artwork or when you finish a project. And a lot of 2020, it's, you know, being very pregnant and about to have a child, and, you know, not sure, having a lot of uncertainty of what the next day or how much energy I was going to have, that doing small pieces allowed me to create without being intimidated by the process, which I don't usually feel, but I think that in this last year, it's just been it's a lot. There's a lot going on. So for me to want to approach a piece and finish it creates this feeling of I'm able to experience that relaxation and almost meditation, and still want to make more, still feel that sense of accomplishment of finishing a project that I do want to move on to the next thing. I do want to keep making more and more pieces. So I think that, I don't know, that's I'm just trailing off here now. I'm not sure where I'm going with that.
Yeah, I briefly talked about the hardship with everything that's going on currently, and I have noticed, or there are lots of pieces up currently at middleweight, and I guess I was wondering, and taking into account what you had written in your statement, and the kind of push to do smaller pieces rather than larger pieces to, you know, feel like you're, I don't know, tackling, because it's pretty crazy
Yeah.
day and age. So I was wondering then, do you feel like this pandemic has changed your work, like as general, and then has it affected the way you chose to share it at Middleway?
Mm-hmm. That's a good question. I feel like my style and my work is always changing. It's always shifting a little bit while still staying grounded and wanting to bring joy to art and put it onto paper. But as far as what I'm showing at Middleway, yes, I think I had thought, part of my organizational skills, I had thought that I actually had booked this show for last year, so in 2019. And I had a very different body of work that I ended up showing in different places. And then, you know, you can always recreate more, but I had a lot of bigger pieces that I was like, okay, this is what I'm making for Middleway Cafe. But then plans change. I unorganized. I'm pretty organized, but that one I kind of just, I was way ahead of the game, which is fine. And so it kind of made me want to approach, like, I had this idea of big pieces look good in Middleway Cafe. Like, it's such big walls that I had wanted to do really big pieces, but I just, whenever I would look at a big piece of plywood, because I used to do pyrography, and I still do pyrography, but I just kind of put it on the back burner. Pyrography. We'll just let that linger there for a moment. Anyway, so I let that kind of go to the background because I wanted to be continuously working on things. But once again, it was so hard to approach this big piece of, I mean, I'll call it canvas, but this big blank piece of paper or plywood or whatever it is, whatever I'm working on, and then just not wanting to do anything. And I felt like I just kept running into that. Even in the winter time, after last holiday season was insanely busy and so incredible. And then in January, February, things usually, it's just like this moment of calm. You can kind of take a step back and then reapproach. But then the pandemic hit in March, and that's usually when I start getting that momentum back. And it wasn't there wasn't that momentum. It's like everything just kept getting canceled or pushed back. And, you know, that was disappointing for a lot of things, but also, I mean, the concern and the, what was happening with the pandemic and the impact that it was having on so many people's lives, that for me, to even think about wanting to put so much time and energy into a big piece of work that maybe I wasn't going to show, because who knows, it's hard to make plans, long-term plans, when you don't know, when there's so much uncertainty. So, I mean, I'm sure I'll go back to big pieces because they're fun and I like to do them. But I think that when I was approaching this show, it was important to me to continue to make new work and to make work that I found relaxing to make. It was more about the process necessarily than the product, even though I'm incredibly happy with the work that I've done for it. But yeah, I will go back to big pieces. Anyway, sorry.
No, yeah, it all looks great up on the walls. The way you displayed it too is more unique with them kind of layered. You'll have to check out the pictures or go into the gallery to see exactly what we're talking about here. But all your pieces do come across like they each individually got attention, like specific attention to, and they're also detailed and just look all wonderful together. So,
thanks.
yeah. And you've mentioned this before that you showed at Middle Way, and I've seen your work actually in the community in the past too. So I was wondering how long ago, or how long you've been making work.
Oh, okay. So I think that it was actually 12 years ago when I came up to Alaska for the first time. My mom gave me this watercolor palette that was like a travel palette and watercolor pen, and then the micron pens that I like to use. And it kind of helped me develop my style and using the medium that I really like. I mean, I've always been into art. I feel like if you like art and you like creating things, like it's not like a new thing that you start doing. But finding your medium and finding something that inspires you, I think can kind of push you to the next level. I moved up here from Bellingham, Washington, and I would have art shows down there. But when I moved up to Alaska, Anchorage is a really unique, or maybe I just think it's unique in how supportive it is of its artists here. There's a lot of really wonderful opportunities to showcase your work, whether that's at markets or having art shows or in galleries. And there really is a wonderful amount of people that want to support artists, and whether they're coming from out of state traveling or they live in state, or you know, there's just a very supportive market out there for people who want to engage with artists and support artists. I think that it was maybe 5 years ago that I really got I got more serious about my art business, and you know, making more products, or making a wider range of things that people could buy, like stickers and cards and prints, rather than just big pieces. It really expanded what I could do here, and it was also really inspiring. You know, you get that feedback, and it makes me want to make more art when I'm getting that positive reinforcement, essentially.
Yeah.
Did that answer your question?
Yeah, it did.
Okay.
Thank you. Yeah, and I think it's fantastic that we're able to continue supporting local artists and sharing work at Middle Way, even during a pandemic. So
Yeah.
it's great to have your work on your wall. I do have one last question for you, Hailey, and that is, how can people find you or locate you online?
Yeah, absolutely. So I have my website, artbyhaileymorgan.com. There's a store on there for some of those smaller items. Instagram is a great place to stay up to date on my what I'm doing and activities that I have going on. So that's Hailey Morgan Art. And locally, if you go across the street to Dos Manos Gallery, you'll find my artwork over there too. So for some of those smaller things. So around town, different places and online are all great places to find me. And then my Facebook page as well, which is linked to this Facebook event page. But yeah.
Great.
You know, it's really, this is an interesting time to be working on an art business, or probably any business in general, because it really is a restructuring of your business model, you know, where it used to be markets and face-to-face and engaging with people in a way that was in person. And that's something that I'm sure you guys are working on and trying to figure out and navigate. Like, how do you create this interpersonal connection with people and engage the community in a meaningful way that's virtual? And that's something that I'm working on, and I'm sure you guys are working on too. So I'm pretty excited about a virtual art opening. I think that this is going to be a really fascinating and wonderful experience. So thank you guys for hosting it.
Yeah. Great. Thank you for, again, sharing your work with Middleway and joining us tonight. We will share Hailey's website link and Instagram handle in the discussion feed below and in the event description, so you can check out more of Hailey's work. We also wanted to remind you again that all of Hailey's work is available for purchase online through mobilebytes.com. We'll include that link as well. Before we continue or conclude this video, Jade wanted to share what Middleway Art is planning for the month of November, which is Alaska Native Heritage Month. Jade?
Yeah, hi. So in honor of Native Heritage Month, throughout the month of November, we'll be highlighting different local Indigenous artists on our various social media platforms. So we recently created an Instagram account. It is Middleway Art. And then we also have a new Facebook page that's separate from the cafe page. And on those two platforms, we'll be showing work by various local Indigenous artists, those who have shown at Middleway previously, and perhaps a few that haven't shown as well. It's kind of TBA. But yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you all so much for joining us. We're so sad we couldn't be with you in community at Middleway, but we look forward to a time when we can all be together again and celebrate art, friendship, and good food in such a fantastic community. Again, these links will all be shared below, and stay in tune for November. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Hailey, for your fantastic work. Thank you, Enzina and Jade, for joining, and Enzina for your past 13 years of dedication to the Middleway Art Program. All right, goodbye, everyone. Stay safe.